The ocean looks peaceful from the surface, but beneath that calm water is a world we barely understand. There are places in the ocean so deep that sunlight never reaches them, places where the pressure is strong enough to crush a human body in seconds. And when you're sitting alone in a small boat, miles away from shore, you can't see what's underneath you. You can only hear it. A strange sound beneath the hull, a sudden vibration through the floor. Then the boat moves, not because of the waves, but because something underneath it just hit the bottom. You look over the side, but the water is completely black. You wait, nothing. Then you see a shadow moving below you. It's too large to identify, and it's moving in the wrong direction, toward the boat. Tonight, we're looking at 3 terrifying ocean horror stories involving people who encountered something they could not explain beneath the water. Some heard impossible sounds, some saw shapes moving beneath their boats, and one crew discovered something that made them realize they might not be alone out there. Because the scariest part about the ocean isn't knowing what lies beneath it, it's knowing that most of it is still unexplored. So if you ever find yourself alone on the water at night, and something starts moving beneath your boat, whatever you do, don't look over the edge. Story 1. The knocking below. It was just after midnight when Daniel and his brother realized something was wrong. They were about 12 miles from shore. The ocean was unusually calm. No storm, no strong wind, not even much movement in the water. They had been out fishing since sunset, and everything had been completely normal, until they heard the first knock. 3 slow knocks came from beneath the boat. Daniel stopped what he was doing. His brother looked at him. Neither said anything. Then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. They immediately assumed they had hit floating debris, but the sound had come from directly beneath them. Daniel grabbed a flashlight and leaned over the side. The beam disappeared into dark water. He couldn't see the bottom. He couldn't even see much beyond a few feet. Then something moved through the beam, just for a second. A pale shape. Daniel pulled the flashlight back. His brother asked what he had seen. Daniel said he wasn't sure. They started the engine. The boat began moving toward shore, and the knocking stopped. For about 5 minutes, everything was quiet again. Then it happened. Knock, knock, knock. This time the sound came from the back of the boat. They increased their speed. The knocking followed. Every few minutes it came again. 3 knocks, always 3, and always from somewhere beneath them. Daniel eventually turned off the deck lights. They wanted to see if something was attracted to the light. The ocean disappeared into complete darkness. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then something enormous moved beneath the boat. They didn't see the entire shape. They only saw a massive shadow passing through the faint moonlight. It was wide enough to cover most of the boat. Daniel's brother grabbed his arm. "Don't look over the side." Daniel asked why. His brother pointed toward the water. Something was circling them. They could see the surface moving in a slow circle around the boat. Whatever was underneath them wasn't swimming away. It was going around them, again and again. Then the boat suddenly tilted. Both men grabbed the railing. Something had pushed against the hull. The engine was still running, but the boat barely moved. Daniel pushed the throttle forward. Nothing. The propeller was spinning, but the boat remained almost completely stationary. Then came another sound. Not a knock this time. A long scraping noise. Something was dragging itself along the bottom of the boat. Daniel started shouting. His brother grabbed the radio and called for help. The response was weak, static. Then a voice finally came through. They explained their location and said they believed something was underneath the boat. The operator asked them what they had seen. Daniel looked down. The water was completely black. Then a pale shape appeared just beneath the surface. It was moving slowly toward the stern. Daniel froze. He couldn't identify it. He could only see part of it, but there was something about its size that made his stomach drop. The radio suddenly went silent. The engine began to sputter. And then the knocking stopped. Complete silence. Daniel and his brother stood completely still. They waited. 10 seconds. 20. Nothing. Then something hit the boat from underneath. Boom. The entire vessel shook. A second impact came from the opposite side. Boom. Whatever was beneath them was moving around the boat. Then Daniel saw something he would later describe as the worst moment of his life. A shape rose beneath the water. Slowly. It came close enough to the surface that he could see its outline. Then it stopped. Right underneath him. Daniel backed away from the railing. His brother did the same. Neither man spoke. For several seconds the shape remained there. Then it sank. Deeper and deeper. Until the darkness swallowed it. A few minutes later the engine suddenly came back to life. They didn't wait. They headed straight toward shore at full speed. The knocking never returned. By sunrise, they were back on land. They checked the boat. There were deep marks underneath the hull. Neither man could explain them. They reported the incident, but no one could determine what had been beneath their boat that night. The official explanation was that they may have encountered a large marine animal, maybe a whale, maybe something else. But Daniel never accepted that explanation because he remembered something the investigators didn't know. The 3 knocks had sounded deliberate. 3 knocks, a pause, then 3 more. And according to Daniel, it almost sounded like something was trying to get their attention. Story 2. The Shadow Under the Water. It happened late one summer night, somewhere off the coast of Maine. 3 friends had taken a small fishing boat several miles from shore. The weather was calm. The sea was almost completely still, and according to the men, that was what made the night so disturbing. There was no storm, no heavy wind, no large waves, just darkness stretching in every direction. They had been fishing for several hours when one of them noticed something strange. The boat had stopped drifting. At first, they assumed the anchor had caught on something, but they hadn't dropped an anchor. The engine was running, and yet the boat seemed to be held in place. One of the men looked over the side. The water below was almost impossible to see through. Then something touched the hull. Thunk. Everyone froze. A few seconds passed. Then thunk. This time, the sound came from underneath the center of the boat. They shut off the engine. The ocean became completely silent. One of the men joked that it was probably a large fish. Nobody laughed. Then the boat moved. Not forward, not backward. It lifted slightly on one side, as if something beneath it had pushed upward. The men immediately started the engine, but before they could move, they saw something beneath the surface. A long, dark shape. It passed underneath the boat so slowly that they could actually watch it moving through the water. Nobody could tell where it began, and nobody could see where it ended. For several seconds, they simply stared. Then the shape disappeared. They waited. Nothing happened. The engine was running again, and they were preparing to leave when one of the men noticed something on the water behind them. A trail. The surface was disturbed in a perfectly straight line. Something was moving beneath them, and it was following the boat. They increased their speed. The trail remained behind them. They went faster. The trail disappeared. For a moment, they thought whatever it was had finally stopped. Then the boat suddenly shook violently. One of the men nearly fell overboard. They turned around. Nothing, just black water. But then they heard a sound that none of them could explain. A deep, low vibration. It wasn't coming from the engine. It wasn't coming from the boat. It seemed to be coming from underneath the water itself. The vibration lasted for several seconds, then stopped. The men decided they had enough. They headed straight toward shore. Nobody spoke much during the trip back. But about halfway there, one of them looked behind the boat and saw something following them again. This time it was closer. He could see a dark shape moving just beneath the surface. Then it disappeared. He turned away. A few seconds later, something struck the bottom of the boat. Hard. The entire vessel jumped. The men panicked. They pushed the engine harder and refused to look back. For the next 20 minutes, nothing happened. Eventually, the lights of the coastline appeared in the distance. Whatever had been following them was gone. They reached shore safely. The next morning, they inspected the boat. There were fresh scratches along the underside of the hull. Long scratches, far too high above the bottom of the boat to have been caused by rocks. They never discovered what made them, and none of the 3 men ever went fishing that far offshore again. But one detail stayed with them. The last time they saw the shadow, it wasn't swimming away. It was moving in the same direction as their boat. Toward shore. Story 3. Something was following them. The crew of the small research vessel had been at sea for almost 2 weeks. They were hundreds of miles from the nearest coastline. Their job was simple: collect water samples, record marine activity, and return home. Nothing about the trip was supposed to be dangerous until the 4th night. It was around 2 a.m. when the first crew member noticed something on the radar. A small moving signal had appeared behind the vessel. At first, they assumed it was another boat, but there was a problem. The signal was moving far too quickly. The captain checked their location. There were no registered vessels nearby. He watched the radar for several seconds. Then the signal disappeared. Everyone went back to work. About 10 minutes later, it appeared again, this time much closer. The captain immediately slowed the vessel. The signal slowed too. He accelerated. The signal accelerated. The crew became quiet. Whatever was behind them was matching their movements. Then one of the crew members went outside. The ocean was almost perfectly calm. He scanned the darkness with a flashlight. Nothing, just black water stretching into the distance. Then he heard something, a splash. He pointed the flashlight toward it. Nothing. Another splash came from the opposite side. Then another. The crew member rushed back inside. They locked the exterior door. The captain tried contacting nearby vessels. No response. Then the radar started behaving strangely. The signal that had been behind them was gone. Instead, there were 3 signals. One on the left, one on the right, and one directly beneath them. The captain stared at the screen. That last signal shouldn't have been possible. Their radar wasn't designed to detect something deep underwater. But the mark was there, and it was moving, slowly directly beneath the vessel. The crew shut down unnecessary equipment. Nobody spoke. Then the ship moved slightly upward. It felt almost like something had lifted it. One of the crew members looked through a small observation window. He immediately stepped backward. The captain asked what he saw. The man didn't answer. He just kept staring at the window. Finally, he whispered, "There's something under us." The captain approached. At first, he saw nothing. Then the water beneath the ship changed. A huge dark shape passed underneath. It was impossible to judge its size. There was no clear head, no visible tail, just a long shadow moving slowly through the darkness. The captain ordered everyone away from the windows. Then something struck the hull. Boom! The ship shook. Another impact came seconds later. Boom! This time the lights flickered. The crew rushed toward the control room. The captain started the engines. The vessel began moving. For several minutes, everything seemed normal. Then the radar beeped. The signal was back. Behind them, following, the captain increased speed. The signal followed. He changed direction. It changed direction. He turned sharply to the east. The signal turned east. At that point, nobody believed they were dealing with a normal animal. The captain pushed the vessel as fast as it could go. Then something happened that terrified the entire crew. The signal disappeared. Not slowly. It simply vanished. The captain stared at the radar. Nothing behind them. Nothing beside them. Nothing ahead. The ocean was completely empty. Then the ship's sonar began to beep. Once, twice, then continuously. Something was directly beneath them, and it was rising. The captain shouted for everyone to hold on. The ship suddenly tilted. A massive shape passed underneath. This time it came close enough for several crew members to see it through the water. One of them later claimed the shape was larger than the vessel itself. Another said it looked like several connected shadows moving together. No one could agree on what they saw, but they all agreed on one thing. It was enormous. Then it disappeared. The ship remained still. The crew waited. Nothing. After several minutes, the captain decided they had to continue toward the nearest port. They moved slowly. The sun eventually began to rise, and as daylight spread across the ocean, the fear started to fade. Until one of the crew members noticed something on the rear deck. There were wet marks. Not footprints. Not exactly. They looked like long trails across the deck, as if something wet and heavy had been dragged across the surface. The crew checked the railing. It was still locked. There was no obvious way anything could have climbed aboard. Then they found something else, a deep scratch across the metal wall, fresh, and several feet above the waterline. Nobody could explain how it got there. The vessel eventually reached port. The crew reported everything. The radar readings were examined. The sonar data was reviewed, but nothing provided a clear answer. The official explanation remained uncertain. Some believed they had encountered a large whale. Others suggested unusual underwater conditions had distorted the sonar. But one crew member refused to accept either explanation because he had recorded something during the final encounter, a short video. The footage was almost completely black. There was barely anything visible, but in the last few seconds, a huge shadow moved beneath the vessel. Then something much stranger happened. The shadow stopped. It remained directly underneath the ship, as if it was looking up, and then it slowly moved away. The crew never returned to that part of the ocean, but the captain kept the radar recording, and according to him, there was one detail he could never explain. The object had been following them for nearly an hour. Then just before sunrise, it stopped following and started moving toward the coast. 3 stories, 3 boats, and 3 encounters with something that should have been nothing more than darkness beneath the waves. Maybe there was a simple explanation. Maybe the shadows were whales. Maybe the strange sounds came from underwater pressure, currents, or something else we simply don't understand yet. But that's what makes the ocean so terrifying. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about many parts of our own deep oceans. There are places beneath the waves where sunlight never reaches, places where the pressure is strong enough to destroy a human body. And somewhere down there, creatures exist that we have never seen alive. Some may be small, some may be harmless, and some may be far larger than anything we expect to find. That doesn't mean every strange sound is a monster, but it does mean that when you're floating alone in the middle of the ocean, you can never truly know what is beneath you. You can't see through hundreds of feet of dark water. You can't hear everything moving below the surface. And if something decides to follow your boat, you might not even know it's there until it gets close. So if you ever find yourself far from shore at night, and the ocean suddenly becomes completely silent, pay attention. If you hear something hit the bottom of your boat, don't immediately lean over the edge. And if you see a shadow moving beneath you, remember that you have no idea how deep it goes. Because sometimes, the most terrifying thing in the ocean isn't what you can see, it's what you can't. And maybe that's why these stories stay with people long after they return to land. Because once you've seen something moving beneath a boat, something too large to identify, the ocean never looks the same again. So tell me, what do you think was beneath those boats? A massive animal? Something we haven't discovered? Or something that shouldn't have been there at all? Let me know your theory in the comments. And if you enjoy true horror stories, unexplained encounters, and mysteries that still have no clear answer, subscribe to the Hidden Fear Archive, because there are still countless stories buried in the darkness. Some were forgotten, some were never explained, and some maybe were never meant to be found. Until the next story, stay curious, stay alert, and if you ever hear 3 slow knocks coming from beneath your boat, whatever you do, don't look over the edge.